Hi everyone, this is Emily with Moms with Cameras, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you today about 6 great family poses. I get asked all the time how to pose families, what's the best way to pose families, and my approach is always natural, but paying attention to classic photography principles. So I hope that those of you who are watching this find it very helpful, and that it gives you some ideas for when you go out for your next family session. So before we get started on the actual poses, I want to tell you a couple of things that you're going to definitely want to make sure you're paying attention to when you're posing families. The first is that you want to be looking at head levels. And so in general, the rule is, minus certain poses, you want to keep the heads on different levels. So you'll notice here her head is on a different level than hers, than his. Dad's is on a different one than mom's. So we have, everybody kind of on a different plane. They're not all lined up. And then another one is in your lighting, you want to make sure that you're watching out for shadows. So for example, if the lighting was coming very strongly across here, Dad would very likely block light from Mom's face. So you need to kind of look for your shadows. And in general, with family portraits, I tend to light it with a lower ratio, meaning the light coming is coming more towards the front so that the highlight and the shadow sides of the face are closer to the same than I would maybe with a single person in a portrait. And that's because I am wanting to make sure that I don't have a shadow cast from one person onto another. So let's go ahead and get started looking at different poses. I'll walk you through kind of how I set up each one and why I like them. And then again, if you have questions, please feel free to send a tweet to @momswithcameras or to send an email to me using the contact tab on the website, which is www.moms-with-cameras.com. So the first one is just a classic family portrait. And in here, in general, you want to look for the triangle pose. This is where I can see that I've made a mistake and that my levels on mom and dad here are kind of the same. And part of that was this dad specifically is kind of a shorter guy than mom, so I needed to have her lean a bit more on her elbow. But you'll notice that in general, the pose is kind of this triangle type of shape. That's a very classic shape. And it's one that grandparents around the world love. They like everybody smiling at the camera. They like everyone in color. There's no funky stuff going on. This is really just a good classic portrait. And so I tend to photograph this one first just because it is a slightly stiffer pose anyways. If the family hasn't really fully warmed up yet, it's not a big deal. They can sit down, they can do this photo. I can take some time to kind of joke with them as I'm adjusting hair and that type of thing. And by the time we move into other poses, they've loosened up a bit. So this is the first one that I like to do. I also like to photograph families very, very close together, and I call it the squishy face shot. And this one, it doesn't bother me. Like, unlike in this one where I was, slightly disappointed here that I didn't have Dad's head a little higher. This one I do. Line everybody up. I tell them, I want them as close to cheek as we can comfortably get, and to look at me, smile. And this one, while it's not, I know a lot of traditional photographers maybe don't love this type of pose. It's not technically speaking, the most traditional classic type of photo. I love it and it sells great. People love to see their families close together, smiling, happy, and it's something that I've just always done and it's always been a great seller in my studio. The next pose that I like to do a lot is mom and dad kissing or almost kissing and the kiddos looking at me. And so in this one there's just one little guy. A lot of times I'll do it, like if you look back at this image, the next photo that I took was mom and dad kissing here and the kiddos here looking at me. So I do like to have mom and dad give each other a smooch. I'll ask them, are you guys willing to do a little PDA for me? And I'll get them to kiss each other while I'm trying to get the kiddos to laugh. And then a great follow-up for this one is to have the kiddos make a face like they are just, if they're a little older, like they are just so disgusted that mom and dad are kissing back there. And that one tends to be a really great seller as well, and it gets phenomenal expressions. And as a matter of fact, that's exactly what happened here. We had mom and dad kissing and the kids were icked out, and then mom started laughing and we got this really great shot of them all laughing together. Another one of my favorite tricks to get families to laugh is to tell them to laugh. So I'll tell them, laugh like it is so funny. I'm the funniest thing you've ever seen. This is if you've got older ones. And they'll all start laughing. And then in the awkwardness of it, they'll start really laughing because they're laughing at how awkward it is. And when they start really laughing is when I capture my image. So I try to encourage laughter with self-deprecating humor, works really well. Threatening to use, squeaky toys and stuff like that with older kids works really well. Making a complete moron, an idiot out of myself works wonderfully with young children, so do bodily function noises. And then telling older families to laugh, to actually laugh it tends to make the natural laugh follow the fake one. The next photo that I really love to do is to put one person in the spotlight, and this is fantastic when you have one youngest child. This family has just the three together, so mom and dad naturally look at the kid, but if we had like a newborn, then I have everybody looking at the newborn minus the newborn who's obviously sleeping, or if we have a little one, then I have everybody looking at the little one, and I try to get the little one to laugh at me. So I like to put one person in the spotlight and then have everybody else looking at that one person. Another great example is to have dad toss a kid up into the air. So dad has the one child, usually the youngest, tosses that kiddo up into the air. Mom and the other siblings and dad are all looking up at that child, which also tends to make that triangle shape, which is very classic. The last one that we're going to cover today is to turn the parents into props. And I love this. I like to give reference to mom and dad without showing mom and dad. So I might do things like have mom and dad's feet and then a small child sitting on the ground between them. I have mom and dad holding hands with this young guy, and so you can see him, you can see his mom, you can see his dad, but the faces aren't necessarily there. I love to have mom or dad wrap their arms around the child and the child smile at me, and so we have the arms wrapped around but just the child's face in those arms. So all of those types of things where you can use mom and dad and turn them into an element of the portrait and not necessarily a subject of the portrait is wonderful, and it's a great way to have, different looks to go into an album. So it's not just here's the family all smiling, here's the family all smiling again and smiling again. It's a good way to kind of break things up. So if you are brand new, if you stumbled across this on YouTube and you have no idea who we are, this is Moms with Cameras. My name is Emily Potts, and I am the writer of the blog, and it's www.moms-with-cameras.com. You can also find us on Facebook. There's a link there. It's just Moms with Cameras, and same with Twitter. You can go to twitter.com/momswithcameras. So please do feel free to follow up with questions. I'd love to hear them. If you tweet them to me, I'll answer them, or if you want to Facebook them to me, I'll answer them. And thank you so much for taking time to watch. I hope you find this content really valuable and useful for what you're doing. So good luck to all of you. I hope you have wonderful family shoots. Thanks. Bye.